No, I rise to speak on the Bail Further Amendment Bill 2025. This Bail Further Amendment Bill 2025 does not go far enough. We've been here too many times now to get this right, and it really isn't that hard. Hence why I support the member for Malvern, whose amendment, the reason amendment to make this bill stronger, by urgently providing Victoria Police and Corrections Victoria with all the resources necessary to implement this bill without further delay, and to adopt the Liberal National Party's break, bail, face jail policy to ensure that Victorian bail laws do not continue to fail to protect the community safely. That's what really needs to happen, and then we will have a proper amendment bill that actually strengthens the bail laws. So while the government claims to strengthen our bail laws, this still falls short of what's necessary to protect our communities from repeat violent offenders, and remains watered down from the 2014 standard which we had when we were in government, because we had strong bail laws which this government has weakened. Premier Jacinta Allan has declared that community safety will always come first, and that these reforms will make Victoria's bail laws the toughest in the country. But let's be honest. If these were truly tough, we wouldn't be seeing the headlines day after day about individuals committing aggravated burglaries, carjacking or armed robbery whilst out on bail over and over again. Aggravated crime continues to be a very pressing concern in regional Victoria, including in South West Coast, not just in Melbourne metropolitan area. This has rippled right across our state to the very edges where we used to feel quite safe. The community has experienced elevated rates of violent and property-related offences, raising questions about public safety and the adequacy of the current law enforcement and judicial responses. And let's be clear, it is not the police's fault. They do an extraordinary job, and they are begging for the laws to be strengthened so that they can be effective in the roles that they are frustrated and burning out in. In Portland, the crime rate has surged over 20%. 20%, Acting Speaker, from 2023 to 2024. That's a very short period of time and a very steep climb in the crime rates. Violent crimes, including assault, robbery and stalking, accounted for 132 incidences, or 13.18 victims per 1,000 residents. But property crimes such as burglary, theft and arson, 447 cases. Now, Portland is ranking in the bottom 17% of safety among Victorian areas. It's a 1 in 76 chance of falling victim to a violent crime. That is appalling. Now, once again, I can't support more confidently and more thankfully the work of the local police in Portland, who do an extraordinary job. They are burnt out. I talk to them frequently. They are frustrated. They get taken from Portland to fill gaps. There are already enormous gaps. They can't get out to areas like Haywood quickly enough because of the workload they've got and the gaps that exist. There's 1,200 police on vacancies in the police force. So no wonder the police, who are trying their hardest to protect their communities like Portland, are struggling. And interestingly, the government have this no machete, banning machetes law, and they've just spent $13 million to get 40 machete bins, these gold-lined bins, because that's what they must be. But no, not one in Portland, not one there, of course not. This government probably doesn't even know where South West Coast is. They forget the importance of their responsibility to govern right from border to border. They're so Melbourne-centric. In Warrnambool, we had increase of crime also, with in 2024 recording 2,634 crimes, 345 violent crimes, 1,169 property crimes, assault and related offences accounted for 344 incidences. The odds of becoming victim of a violent crime in Warrnambool is 1 in 91. Now, if that was an incidence of getting cancer, you'd be terrified. Well, you should be terrified now because this is the incidence we've got of violent crime. And the police in Warrnambool, they're wonderful. They're walking the streets. They're trying their hardest. But the residents are living in fear now. The retailers are living in fear. They cannot support their staff. They cannot feel safe to go to their cars after shifts. They cannot open their business and not have trouble out the front in the main areas of our CBDs. A breach of orders, now this is interesting, to breach an order is the second most common offence, which is what breaking bail looks like, a breach of an order. So that just demonstrates that this government has overseen a lack of respect in the law and order now because the police haven't got the tools and the resources they need to put the law in place to keep people off the street. And I tell the story of a break-in in a shop in Portland, and the shop owner said to me, the man was out back hassling his shop when they hadn't even finished boarding up the window. He was bailed and back out in the street quicker than he was able to board up the window that the guy had smashed. In Terang, Koroit, Port Fairy and Hayward, people are not feeling safe in their homes anymore. And these are places we used to not lock our doors in. That's how I've always lived my life. Never locked a house in my life. Didn't even have a key to my home when I lived in Woolsthorpe. Not anymore. That's how rapidly things have changed in just a short 5 years, really. So while Warrnambool and Portland are rich in history and culture, and the rise in aggravated crime threatens a sense of security that we as residents deserve, and addressing these challenges requires a coordinated effort between local authorities, state government and community organisations to ensure that justice is not only served but felt. So these figures that I've read out underscore a growing need for stronger preventative measures, more visible policing and judicial reforms that prioritise community safety. But it's not possible. It's not possible because there's not enough police and the laws aren't there to support them. It's not possible because 22,000 police shifts from around the state are being directed to Melbourne to deal with the unregulated, dangerous protest activity, leaving regional communities unsafe and unprotected. And as I said, 1,200 vacancies in the police force, and they're burnt out. The reality is that our current system continues to allow dangerous individuals back on our streets, often within hours of being charged. The example I just gave you of the retailer in Portland. So why should someone who has already demonstrated a disregard for the law be given another opportunity to reoffend? The community deserves better than a system that gambles with our safety. Bail should be denied automatically for those charged with violent offences whilst on bail. No exceptions, no loopholes. Critics argue that tougher bail laws risk undermining the presumption of innocence. But let me ask, what about the presumption of safety for victims and the public? What about the rights of families who live in fear because known offenders are walking free? Justice must be balanced, and right now the scales are tipped in favour of the accused, not the community. This bill also fails to address the growing concern around youth offenders. While recent amendments have removed the principle that remanding children should be the last resort, the bill does not go far enough to ensure that young repeat offenders face meaningful consequences. We need targeted reforms that hold youth accountable while also providing pathways out of crime, not vague gestures that leave victims feeling abandoned. In conclusion, the Bail Further Amendment Bill 2025 is a missed opportunity. It gestures towards reform but stops short of delivering the robust protections that our communities need. If we are serious about preventing reoffending and restoring public order, restoring public confidence in our justice system, we must go further. We must demand a bail system that prioritises safety, accountability and has zero tolerance for repeat violent crime offenders.